2 years ago, I was basically forced to take over my dad's tutoring center because he had a sudden stroke. And even though it was really hard because there was really no one online making valuable content about how to go about it, I was able to learn the ins and outs of the business and how to scale it. So a couple years later, I started and scaled my own tutoring company, which I still run to around 80k per month. And now this is a kind of full circle moment for me because I'm now becoming the guy I wish I had at the start. Because in this space is just a bunch of business gurus, none of whom actually run their own tutoring business themselves, selling courses where all they give you is theory and a bunch of fluff, but no actual practical and actionable advice that you can take to achieve the result that you want. So what you are about to watch is by far the most comprehensive guide that you will get to go from zero to over $20,000 a month from tutoring. From how to build your 4 to 5 figure offer and tailor it to your ideal client, how to set up your sales funnel, which is your landing page and VSL and calendar, how to set up and script your ads to get a 3 to 10x ROAS, how to launch ads and get calls booked, how to close those 4 to 5 figure tutoring packages without any resistance, and finally, how to onboard them so you can actually do what you do best, which is teach. This is exactly what we did to help Sai go from 2k a month to 14k a month in 1 month, Kazi go from 4k a month to 15k a month, George go from 0 to 7k a month. And you might be thinking, Faraz, what is the catch? I'll say it again. I want to put everything out for free so you see that even my free videos are better than $1,000 courses from all the other gurus. So that when you start your business and you start making 1, 3 or 5k and you scale to 10, 20 or 50k, you know where to come. So I have to warn you now to pay attention because this is not your average 10-minute guide. This is a complete beginner's guide to starting a tutoring business that can change the course of your life. So get out your notebooks, block out everything, and let's get started. Alright, this is the complete tutoring business guide. This is everything I used to run a 100k a month tutoring business. The offers, the funnels, the ad scripts, the sales process, all of it for free. So there's no email gate, no upsell wall. You can literally duplicate this page and use it. The link is in the description. So I got into this by accident. 2 years ago, my dad had a sudden stroke and I was basically forced to take over his tutoring center. There was nobody online making genuinely useful content about how to actually run one of these. They were just business gurus who'd never taught a lesson in their life and they were selling theory. I managed to figure out anyway. I scaled his tutoring center from 120k a year to 180k a year, and then I built my own tutoring company, Life Changing Digital, and I scaled it to around 80 to 100k a month while still in medical school. This guide is the thing that I wish existed when I started. Why is it free? Because I'd rather you see that my free material beats the £1,000 courses in this space. And when you go from 0 to around 5k or 20k a month, and you want help scaling past that, you'll know where to come. This is not a 10-minute read. It's 8 modules, each with step-by-step SOPs and fill-in templates. Work through them in order. Every module assumes that the one before has been completed. So skipping module 5 and writing the ads before you have an offer is the single most common way people waste time and money here. So what does this actually get you? It's the path from 0 to £20,000 a month from tutoring. It also helps you go from a stuck hourly tutoring pricing to a packaged business that doesn't cap out at the number of hours in your day. This is what it did for people who ran it. Sai from 4Medics went from 2k a month to 10k a month in just 2 weeks. Kazi from Valence Chemistry went from 4k a month to around 50 to 20k a month consistently. He's getting around a 16.6x ROAS. George from Top Grade Tutors went from 0 to £7,000 a month. He was fully booked out, a 17.5x return on ad spend. Zach from Tutor Elite, I believe he's from the Canadian or French market. He is at 3k per month and then he scaled to 10k per month with this system. Shamir from Debt Pathway was working for another tutoring company. He launched from scratch with us, closed 5.5k while still in university from around £400 in ad spend, which is a 12x return, and he is now a big competitor to the guy that he used to work for. He's now a big competitor to the guy that he used to work for. This is my dad. We helped him go from 120k a year to 180k a year within just 1 year, just by fixing the offer positioning, and pricing. And this one is exceptional. So Sagnik, he reached out to me around 2 weeks ago. He bought our DIY vault, which is basically what I'm giving away for free here. He bought this for around $1,000. He went silent. He pretty much ghosted me for like 4 months because in his DIY vault purchase, he gets access to one-to-one consulting with me. He can ask me any questions. I kept following up with him, asking him if he had any questions. He didn't really say anything. But literally after 4 months, he randomly reached out to me and he hit his first 20K month from the month before being a $350 month. There was no one-to-one coaching. All he did was he just put his head down, implemented everything that we talked about, and hopefully the screenshots are on the screen to prove that this actually happened. You can even look up his tutoring company. But to me, this one is amazing. You can see these video testimonials if you want to hear it from the actual guys themselves. So run this if you're a tutor who are stuck at 30 to 50 pounds an hour and you can't get past that pricing ceiling. You're struggling to charge more. Maybe you're a qualified teacher who wants to get out of a 9 to 5 and you want to go all in and build a real reliable business that gives you financial freedom. Or you're already running a tutoring business on word of mouth, but you have no reliable way to actually get more students. Maybe you're a graduate student who can teach well and wants to run a real business and not a side hustle. And obviously, the final person that this could be for is if you're already running a tutoring business with paid ads. Maybe you're running a very similar system to this, but you're still stuck around 3 to 15K a month. And this might be the thing that will unlock the new level of revenue. You're already running a tutoring business with paid ads, but you're stuck around 3 to 15K a month, and it's because of your marketing. Maybe you can't scale your paid ads further. Then you might want to come back to a video like this where we build everything up from the foundations so that you have the actual marketing system that will allow you to scale to 20, 30, or 50K a month. So who is this not for? This is not for people who can't teach the subject to a high standard. Self-explanatory. If you're not a good tutor, this isn't going to work. If you just want passive income without having to actually talk to parents and clients, because you're going to be on tons of sales calls if you want this to work. And if you're looking for a way to charge premium prices for a service that isn't premium, again, it's super important that you actually deliver and you get results for this to work. In terms of how this guide works, you can find the link in the description. You can duplicate this page. You can work on one module per sitting. Each one ends with a done when checklist. Don't move on until every box is ticked. And fill in the templates as you go. The templates are the actual deliverable. A module you understood but didn't fill in is a module that you didn't really do. So here are the 8 modules. You got the estimated time in terms of how long it will take for you to work through each one of these. So what you'll walk away with from each module, with the ICP module, you'll have a 1-page profile of exactly who you sell to in their own words. The offer module, you'll come out with a packaged outcome-based offer priced at 4 to 5 figures. The landing page plus VSL module, you'll have a written landing page and a scripted VSL. This is a video sales letter. This is what the parent sees before they book a sales call with you. The setup backend module, you'll have all of the tracking and reminders and all of the systems set up to run without you. The ad scripts module, you'll have 5 ads ready to film, 4 hook variations, and also 1 static. The launch ads module, you'll have the live campaigns and the KPIs that tell you if they're working. Sales, we're going to look at how we can actually run each call and make sure that you're able to handle the objections that your parents and clients are going to give you. And then onboarding is the first 30 days, the system that you'll need to use to produce actual results and make sure that you're managing everything when you're bringing on parents. Okay, so before you go into any of the actual modules, you want to understand how this entire system works. And to pretty much walk you through what the parent or the client is going to see is they're going to see a Facebook or an Instagram ad, which is something that we build in module 5 to 6. They're going to then click on it, and this system, we're going to show you how to set up a VSL landing page, but there is also a mechanism where you can have a lead form, a Facebook ad lead form that shows before the landing page. Okay, now it's a bit too complex to go into in here. We're just going to stick with a simple setup that works, and that's going to be opening a VSL landing page. As soon as they click that, they're going to see a website which has a headline which sort of calls out the parent. It tells them what outcome we're going to help them achieve with our tutoring. It shows a video underneath, which is going to actually break down the offer. It's going to break down exactly why they need tutoring and why your program is going to help them achieve their goals. And then finally is going to be a qualifying form. This is going to ask some questions that's going to make sure that they are a qualified lead, someone that you can actually sell to and actually make a good amount of money from. Okay. Once they fill out that form, they're going to then book a call. Okay. So they only see this if they actually qualify. Right, this is in module 3, again, VSL and landing page section. The next thing is they're gonna, once they've booked a call, they're gonna see the thank you page. So this is another video that we're gonna record. It's gonna set expectations. It's gonna break down again some other info that they're gonna want to know before the call, specifically sort of outlining your offer. And then you're also gonna have some FAQ sections, some frequently asked questions. So the next thing is the automations. So on the back end, usually using Go High Level, which is a CRM that we use, we're going to have confirmation automations, reminder sequences, and no-show reactivation automations. So this is going to make sure that people actually show up to the sales calls that they've booked for. These are what we frame them as our strategy calls, where you're sort of providing value to the parent. But from our end, these are sales calls. These are where you want to get them to actually sell and join your tutoring program, right? So these things are going to make sure that they actually show up to these calls. And then no shows, this is how we actually make sure that if they miss the call for whatever reason, we have a way to actually reactivate them and still squeeze out and still actually manage to sell them. Okay, so then they're going to attend their strategy call. This is where you're going to diagnose their problem. You're going to walk through the sales structure that we built out in module 7. You're going to present the offer, and then you're going to close. So you're going to handle any objections that they give you on that call, and ideally you're going to collect payment on the call. And the final step is they're going to get onboarded, and you're going to start delivery, right? You're going to start actually tutoring them. Ideally you get them the result, and then you produce testimonials, which then feeds back in to the ads. Okay, and this is the full system that we're going to be running, and this is the exact system that we are using right now, and it's allowed us to hit 80 to 100k dollars per month. So the numbers that you're actually going to be aiming for, and these are real benchmarks from 136k of my own ad spend, and we scripted this before, so at the moment it's actually more around 148k, I think, roughly, and we do directly to the UK market. So if your campaign isn't near these and something in your system is broken, and the module in the right column is going to show you which place in the system to look for. Okay, so if your cost per lead is anything above 10 to 20 pounds, then something is probably off in terms of your ad creative, so the hook specifically in module 5. Okay, if your cost per booked call is anything above 50 pounds, $50, okay, again, that could be your VSL page. Similarly, it could also be your creative as well. It's both of them realistically, right? Now, there are specific circumstances where your cost per booked call can be above 50. Okay, and that's if you are extremely high ticket and you're disqualifying people. If you're not disqualifying people from booking a call, which you're probably not going to be doing if you're looking at this starter's guide, you want to keep your cost per booked call under 50 pounds ideally, right? However, the most important metric is your customer acquisition cost. This is CAC in shorthand, okay? And if these metrics are anything above, let's say these are broken, but your CAC is still within this range, then it doesn't matter. Okay, this is the fundamental crux of every business. So if your CAC is good, right? So let's say it's costing you 100 to 200 pounds to actually acquire every customer, and from that customer you're achieving 800 to 2,000 pounds. Okay, you can see you are basically running a money printer. Okay, you're putting in 200 pounds, and on the low end, you're 4xing that money. It doesn't matter what's going on. You turn the ad spend up and you make more money. That's what you do. Okay, until one of these breaks, and then you can look at what to fix. Okay, now obviously, if your customer acquisition cost is broken, there's many things that could be it. We've got here the offer. Again, it could be your ads, because again, these are all linked, right? So if your customer acquisition cost is broken, you want to look upstream to an extent. You want to look at these things. Are any of these broken? If these are all good and it's just your CAC that's high, it's going to be two things, right? So it's going to be either your offer is broken, or it could be your closing is just bad. Okay, so if you're not good at sales and you're struggling to convert people who could definitely convert, then that's your sales issue. Okay, and the final thing is maybe you're attracting the wrong parents, you're attracting the wrong clients. Okay, maybe these guys are too broke. And again, that's going to come down to module 5 again, right? So you can see how everything is linked, where your ads are attracting the wrong parents. You need to fix your creative, you need to fix your targeting. And usually the targeting is down to the creative. What we've noticed is if you look poor in your ads, you're going to attract poor parents. If you look like you're in your bedroom, like I am right now, this is why I never record ads in my bedroom. But if you look like you're in your bedroom, you're going to attract poor parents. Okay, so we usually rent studios, or we're going to go ahead and sort of use a UGC actor who has a really nice studio, right? Or maybe use an AI actor. We use a lot of AI ads at the moment, and you want to fix all of these things. Okay, now the offer price. So obviously your offer price should be around this range. If it isn't, then just go through the module to fix your offer. All right, and then your show rate, you're going to want this to be a minimum of 50%, all the way up to 75%. And if there's any issue with that, obviously you want to look at your reminder sequences. Module 4 is going to help you fix that. There are many other systems that we can go into to try and improve your show rate. We are, like, transparently, we're actually struggling with this a tiny bit right now with our Oxbridge offer. It's around 45%. So we're just below the baseline. Okay. And this can happen. Okay. You're not always going to have premium perfect numbers. Things are going to go up and down. Okay. And this has happened recently where our show rate is low. So this is our bottleneck. And if you have one bottleneck, you have to put all of your attention to fixing it. So, like, literally even working today, my entire work day, which is at the moment, it's a bit shorter, it's around 4 or 5 hours a day, was just put into trying to fix the show rate. And that just shows once you fix that bottleneck, then you can scale your ad spend and you can make more money. Okay. So you want this to be within 50 to 75, and your close rate should be around 20 to 35%, unless we're looking at a super, super high ticket program where, for example, again, with us, we sell around up to 15K for our packages. So our close rate can be within 15% or lower sometimes, at least on raw calls, just because many of our leads are just not going to have the money to sell. Okay. But again, if you're within our offer pricing range, then you're going to be wanting to close at this rate at least. And again, that's in module 7. And your return on ad spend, your ROAS, should be a minimum of 3x. Okay. But as you'll see with a lot of our clients, you can achieve 10 to 20x or even more. If your ROAS is broken, you want to look at the whole thing. You want to figure out exactly where your bottleneck is. You want to fix everything. For context, we run around a 3.7x ROAS across all of our offers, and that even includes this offer on Tutor Launch. And we run at very high ad spends. And obviously, as you're scaling your ad spend, your ROAS is going to decrease. Okay. But when you're running smaller budgets and you're running the same system, a lot of our tutors are looking at 10x returns, some of it 12 to 36x, right? However, whenever I take on a client, I always tell them, if you're going to start a new ad system, you want to be expecting at least to be able to break even within the first month, because not everyone is going to manage to hit these crazy numbers within the first month. Okay. Some niches are going to be just doing really well. You're going to put on your ads and you're going to immediately have a 10x. Others, you're going to struggle. Okay, maybe you'll only get a 2x within the first month, right? And you have to keep things slow until things pick up. You improve your ads, you improve your system, you improve everything on this. You improve all of these metrics and you're going to be able to scale. So one thing that most people get wrong is that parents don't want tutoring, they want a result. They want their child to actually get a grade, they want to get that place, they want to get the future. And the moment you start selling the hours of tutoring instead of the outcome, that's when you've priced yourself into a ceiling. And you've told them that you're a commodity. They're going to look at everyone else in the market. They're going to think, who can I get to actually do this same hourly thing, but just for cheaper? Everything in the next 8 modules is downstream of this one problem. So if you want help and you want to start from scratch, or you're one of those people that we just talked about of who this is for, then this is all you really need. Okay. And like you've seen, some people have taken this, Sagnic, for example, have taken this exact setup, gone from 0 to 20K a month. Okay. You don't exactly need me to start out. What people get stuck on isn't the information. It's that the ads, the funnel, the conversion process, and the sales skill all have to work together. Okay, and getting there is a lot of trial and error. And that is with real money on the line, because you're going to be spending this money on Facebook ads. If you don't do these things right, you can end up burning tons of money. And that's exactly what I did when I started out. I paid agencies, I paid coaches, and I was even at a point, once I did get to a point where something was working, I was still spending 4K a month, and I was actually only making 4K a month revenue back, right? And I was just working and working. right? So it's pretty much working for free. So if you want to actually skip all of that trial and error, you want to actually fast track the results that you get. And there are two doors depending on who you actually are. So if you are still building it or you're under 10K a month, we have a done for you setup. So where we build the whole system for you, we actually use our expertise to actually build all of this. So you don't have to do all of this done. So you don't have to do all of this yourself and try and sort of learn the skill. Obviously, we've got all the details here, but if I gave you the but if I gave you all of the instructions on how to play the violin, sure, you could probably play it, but you're not going to be able to play it as well as someone who has actually done this for years. And that's exactly what this is. We build this out for you, we do the scripting, we build the automations, and we actually build your offer, right? And then you film, we help you film, we make sure that everything is picture perfect, and then all you have to do is teach, okay? And obviously start using our manuals where we show you exactly how to actually continue to run this setup and continue to iterate after we've done this build out for you. So you've got that link right here. The second one is if you're already doing 10 to 30K a month on paid ads. This is a completely different problem. You're not missing a funnel, you're just capped. You're stuck around 30 students and you need to fix something structural. You need to go into the weeds and figure out exactly what is stopping you and then unlock that bottleneck. We have a few options for this. The top tier package is where we guarantee you an additional 40K a month in 90 days, or I work for free until we actually hit that. So you can click that link here if that is you. Alright guys, module 1 ICP. So the goal of this is to get a one-page profile so you know exactly who you're going to sell to and you want it to be written in their own words. So that means specifically the words, the verbiage that the parent or the client is going to use. And this is something that you want to iterate on consistently. Okay, this isn't something you just do once. This is something that you're consistently moving upon based on the sales calls that you have. You get new data, new words that they're using, and new pain points that they have, and this is all feeding back into your ads. Okay, and you're only going to be able to do the majority of this module if you've actually tutored before and you've got parents before that you can speak to and sort of look back on the conversations. But there is a bit of a workaround that you can use if you've never tutored before, you have no one to speak to and like look at again the type of pain points that these guys have. You can go on Reddit, you can go on Mumsnet and Facebook groups, figure out what type of words they're using. It's super important to know exactly what type of words, what type of pain points they have if you want to have messaging that is going to work for your ads. But again, it's not to say that this is a be all end all, but we highly recommend that you do utilize this type of thing where you are consistently honing in on your ICP after every single ad batch. Okay, so it's going to be a very short module. You can do a lot of this work through ChatGPT work. You'll be able to do a bit of like agentic research for you. But obviously, this is again something that traces back to a lot of your problems. So if you end up with a business that is not scaling on marketing, this could absolutely be part of the issue. Okay, because if you have a vague ICP, you're going to have a vague offer, you can have a vague ad, you're going to be paying Facebook to show messaging that doesn't actually speak to a specific client, to a specific parent, and you're just losing your money on Facebook ads. Okay, this is one of the biggest reasons as to why people lose money on Facebook ads. This is a clear example of where people go wrong with this. They'll say that they tutor maths, English, science, they tutor for GCSEs, for KS3, for A-level, they tutor all of these different things. And this is the worst thing that you want to do. You don't want to be someone who's super broad. You need to be solving a specific problem. Okay. Reason being is there are going to be companies out there that do all of these things. Okay. And they have hundreds or thousands of testimonials that you can't compete with. Why would they go with you if you do all of this? The only reason they'd go with you is if you're much cheaper than them, and you never want to be in that position because you're going to be in a race to the bottom. Okay. So the big lever that you can pull here is you can niche down to a very, very specific problem. And you can see if you're going to be helping parents of year 12 students in London targeting Oxford medicine who are panicking because their predicted grades aren't high enough, this is a much smaller subsection. And even, for example, if you're competing against me, because we do broad Oxford tutoring, if someone is in this specific scenario where they're in London and they're going for Oxford medicine, and this is exactly what you say you do, there's a chance that you're going to be able to steal that client from me, right? Because you're much more specific to this person. So that's a big lever that you can pull, and it's a big issue for you if you aren't niched down far enough. So all your marketing needs to be niche down. You don't have to go this super niche. Even if it's just Oxford medicine, that's a really small niche for you to go for, right? Because very few people are going to be going for Oxford medicine. Most tutoring companies are doing all of medicine or doing all of Oxbridge, right? And this is something you really want to play into. Okay. And on that note as well, so you are always going to get parents who are asking for other forms of tutoring, right? That doesn't mean you can't sell it. You can absolutely sell if someone needs help with their UCAT, but they're a dental student, go ahead and do that, right? If you're this person. But don't change your marketing and your messaging to match that. Your marketing has to be solving for one particular ICP. And a really good example of this is my own company. So again, you guys will know we have two tutoring companies, and then we have Tutor Launch, where we actually help tutors scale. And when I started Tutor Launch, we thought, actually, let me just work with people who are at 20K a month and they need to scale to 30, 40, 50K a month. And that's going to be the best because they have more money, right? But what we've found out as we've sort of worked with people, we found that one of our best client archetypes is someone who has been a solo tutor for a while. They've maybe done 2 or 3K a month, right? And they're kind of stuck, but they're willing to sort of go all in. Maybe they have other income from their employment, right? Or they're doing side hustles, whatever. Maybe they're a graduate and they've got other income from employment, but they're looking to go all in on this. We found these type of people actually can be really good clients for us because we end up taking them from 2K a month to 15K a month. And that jump is so big. It makes such a big difference in someone's lifestyle. They end up having a much better reaction, much better outcome than, for example, if you helped someone go from 20K to 30K a month, right? So your ICP can always evolve. It's not to say that we only help these guys, but that's just an example, right? What you will find is there are going to be segments of the market that you are the best at servicing, and you want to double down on those, especially if they are bringing you more profit. Okay, you want to always go for what the market tells you to do. So how do we actually do this? Step one, we pick an outcome, not a subject. So you don't want to help them improve maths. You want to help them get into a Russell Group university or help them get into a grammar school, right? You have to be able to name the finish line. And if you can't name the finish line, then you don't have an offer yet. So you really need to understand, what is this great achievement? What is that going to mean to this client? What is that going to result? What change in their life? And ideally, you want to be able to link it to something financial, right? If they're going to end up in these top universities, they're going to be ending up in these top job roles. Okay. So you want to be able to do that. We're going to talk about that a bit more in the sales section in module 7, I believe it is. So step 2 is decide who actually pays, which is actually going to be the parent. Okay. So you have to market everything to the parent, to the payer. So you want to understand them as well. What type of age are they? What location are they usually from? Other income signals do they have? What jobs do they have? You can, again, use these in your hooks. You can market towards. I've seen some people do really well when they market towards doctors, right? Because they know they have an income level, and doctors usually have kids who want to go into medicine, right? So that can be a really good way to market medical admissions tutoring. Right. The next thing is you want to find the pain moment. Okay. Nobody buys tutoring on a random Tuesday. They're going to have a trigger moment. And these are from our actual client transcripts. A lot of 11 plus parents come to us with difficulties with creative writing. Okay. The other ones will have bad mock results or bad predicted grades. This is when the moment of pain is high enough that they actually go ahead and book some tutoring for themselves. Okay. So you want to find that moment. Step 4 is collect the real phrases. So this is, again, the step that most people skip. This is very high leverage because this is what you're going to utilize in your marketing, in your messaging. This is exactly what we do, especially after your first batch of ads. When you're starting out, you're going to be marketing towards the top of the buyer's pyramid. Okay. You're going to be looking at people who are the most aware. You just give them a direct offer and a guarantee, but you need to have some messaging and some ads that are towards the bottom end of the buyer's pyramid. So these are people who are a bit less aware. Obviously, when you're starting out, you want to be giving just direct guarantees, direct offers in your hooks. That's going to be the sort of biggest leverable. But as you are making new batches of ads, as people have seen your guarantee offer and they've seen that 5 or 6 times on their feed, they're going to want to see something different. Okay. And this is what's going to be the thing that converts them at the end, is if you use the words and the verbiage that they actually use themselves, and you describe their problems so descriptively that they feel like you must know how to solve this problem. Okay, so you can go through your past clients, you can go through threads, right? Again, this is where you can use ChatGPT work if you want to go through these different threads and copy verbatim sentences. You want to use the exact words that they will be using, right? Step 5 is going to be writing your disqualifiers. So name who explicitly this isn't for. And you can do this a lot in your VSLs and on your copy. This can be a really big lever to pull, because if you tell people this is not for X, Y, and Z, they're much more likely to believe you. An example of the type of people you're not going to want is someone who's just looking for hourly tutoring, someone who doesn't really care about a good result. Maybe they just want a tiny bit of an improvement, right? Someone who's not going to be willing to put in the work. These type of things, it makes you seem much more believable because you're not just going to tell them, I can give you this result without you putting in the work. Okay. And same thing is obviously you're going to want to disqualify people who are just looking for the best price, right? So these are all the things that are going to be useful in your messaging. And the final thing is compress it into one sentence. Okay. So you can help this person at this specific trigger moment achieve this specific result, right? And then you can have a method name that you use. So something like the A-star guarantee method. If you just make it unique, that's something that you can have as your brand. Okay. But realistically, this is all stuff that's going to come into use later on. Although you're doing all of this work now, you're going to be able to utilize this, and it's going to make a big difference in your actual marketing and messaging. Okay. And here is your ICP one pager that you can fill out using everything that we've just taught you. And you can see my real data. Like I was telling you, 17% of our parent calls mention creative writing as a weak spot. Okay, so it's obviously we have to use this in our marketing, right? And we wouldn't have known this if we hadn't done the analysis on our sales calls to find the specific words that our parents are using, specific pain points that they have. Okay, so this is really useful stuff for you to understand when you're starting out your initial ad scripts. This is what we do when we're building out our programs. We're building out our scripts for our clients, right, in our done for you build outs. So you have to be doing some research. You can't just put together you can't just put together random ad scripts from ChatGPT and hope it's going to work. That's usually where people lose their money. So this is the done when section. You can obviously check these off once you have filled them out, and let's move on to the next module. All right, module 2, offer. So module 2, this is going to be about how we can actually package your program into something that isn't a commodity. Okay, most tutors are going to stay stuck at £30 per hour. You want to be selling packages for 4 or 5 figures instead. Why? Because that's going to allow you to invest that money directly back into ads and scale super fast. Okay, if you're going to do hourly pricing, you can absolutely make that work. There are many companies that do. You usually will need lots of money in your savings because you're going to lose money up front to acquire a customer. Okay, if you're going to put money into ads, it's usually going to cost you 100 to 200 quid before you get a customer. Okay, and if that client is paying you £30 an hour, you're going to have to take a minimum of 6 or 7 lessons with them before you're profitable. Just do the maths on that, right? The reason why we want to do packages is because it helps with your cash flow and allows you to scale quickly. Okay, again, it's not to say that this doesn't work. I know many companies who kill it with hourly pricing. But if you're starting out, it's probably a lot more difficult than you think it is. And again, we made this mistake when I started out. So the 4 mistakes that most people will be making is they're going to be selling tutoring or features of tutoring instead of the actual outcome. We already talked about this in module 1. The outcome is exactly what the client wants, like what they're thinking about. It's obviously the grade, but what is it going to lead to? Okay. And then the second one is you have to have a guarantee. Okay. A lot of people don't have a guarantee, and that means all the risk sits with the parent. They're not going to be able to buy a 5-figure package. If there's a ton of risk, they have no idea if you're a good tutor. They have no idea if you're going to be able to get them the result. If you hold a guarantee, that brings a lot of the risk down. Okay. Number 3 is no differentiator, right? And this is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to be a commodity. If you're a commodity, every time you get on a sales call, the parent is going to tell you, I'm just going to go ahead and look at your competitors. I want to speak around and look around the market and find someone who is going to be the best fit for me, right? But if you have a differentiator, right? If your offer is actually unique and is very valuable, parent is going to be on that call and they're going to know, well, this is better than anything I've ever seen before. I'm going to go ahead and make the investment now, right? They're not going to have to go and search around the market. And we don't really get people, like it's very rare that we will get people looking around the market, right, and saying like I need to explore the other options, right, because of the way we've designed our offer. Number 4 is selling time. This is obviously self-explanatory. If you're going to be selling hourly pricing for yourself, if you're going to be selling hourly tutoring, you're going to have an income ceiling by design, right? Obviously you can hire tutors in, but then you have to be able to explain to the parent that the fact that these guys are just as good as you, etc. It becomes a whole nother problem for you to solve, right? And the reason why most of these people make these mistakes and why you might have made a similar mistake is because this is what you see everywhere. Everyone is charging by the hour, right? But at the end of the day, parents don't want tutoring, they want the result. And when you charge by the hour for tutoring sessions, you're basically signaling to them that what you sell is your time. It's not the actual result that they came for. They don't really care about your time, right? They care about the result. So you have to package everything correctly. So this is again very, very important module. You have to nail this first. And again, this is another thing that is going to feed into your ICP, to your marketing, and it's going to consistently change. Okay. It's not like we built our Oxbridge offer for our tutoring and then we just kept it the same forever. Like you have to use the feedback that comes in, but ideally you want a strong starting offer. Okay, so how do we start this? Step one, we again use the ICP one pager. So it's important that you have this ready. We're just going to have this on the side. So use the ICP one pager, and this is going to give us exactly what outcome we need to achieve. Okay, and then what we're going to look at is how do we go from where the parent is at right now to the end outcome, right? So when we started out, we had a lot of people asking about, like, why are you doing 12-week or 16-week packages when I'm obviously, if I join you, I'm going to want tutoring all the way up until the exam, which is maybe 1 or 2 years away, right? So you want to design your program so that it actually keeps that in mind. Okay, it gets them from where they are at to the actual outcome. Okay, now we had a bit of a just to give a bit of a story. We started out again with like 6-month packages. We had a lot of people saying, well, what am I going to do after 6 months? I want tutoring all the way until the exam. So we started changing the packaging where it was now until the exam. So these were super long packages, 18 months, etc. Right? But I mean, that was working, but at the same time, that's a really big commitment for someone to make. So what we found is a good middle ground is you're maybe going to do a 12, 16-week program, right? With the intention that they're going to renew after that. Okay. But within that 16 weeks, you can still produce a result. So you can give them a guarantee of 1 or 2 grade increases. If it's GCSE, right, you can have an internal baseline assessment, right? And then after that 16-week program, obviously they renew and you make it clear to them that's what's going to happen. They should continue all the way until the exam, right? So you want to have the offer that is going to get them the result, not just session by session, not like, oh, it's 1 hour a week, etc., etc. No, you join this program, you stick with it, we will guarantee this result. Step 3 is you start stacking things that normal tutoring doesn't work. This is how you are able to differentiate yourself. You can add WhatsApp support, right? You can add accountability check-ins, you can add progress tracking, you can add application support, study skills course, someone actually who mentors them in other areas, if that's super curriculars for applying to universities, writing their personal statement, etc. Right? But you want to stack these things, including the guarantee, but any problem that the parent comes to you with, right? For example, again, what happens if she's stuck on a problem 9 p.m. before the night before, right? Well, for example, what happens if she's stuck on a problem 9 p.m. the night before, or what if there's no way to get them to do the homework? They're just not listening, etc. So, like, how are we going to solve that problem? Every part of your offer has to solve an objection that the parent has. This is why your offer always evolves. Okay, every time you're taking sales calls, you are going to understand your prospect better. You're going to understand there are different problems, and then you can just make a part of your offer that solves that specific problem. Okay. And step 4 is add a real guarantee with real stipulations. So a lot of people, and you can see the number 2 concern, apparently, based off of all my sales calls, is that they've been burned before, right? And they want proof that this is not going to be something that is a waste of time, a waste of money. Okay. So, I mean, again, these are some quotes, right? We have a guarantee. Some people don't want guarantees. They're fine with it, right? Because what we do with our guarantees, depending on where you're at, okay, if it's something that is very, very difficult to guarantee, you have to make it a bit more difficult for them to achieve it, right? So you have to add some stipulations that make sure that they're going to actually put in the work, right? And you can even have an increased price for the guaranteed program. Right. But what we do, for example, with our 11 plus tutoring, they have to attend a certain number of sessions. So you can put it as all. I think there might be some legal concerns potentially with it. If you might have to put it to 90 or 95% as your stipulations, but have a look into that. You can put them to complete. And this is what we do. We don't have attendance stipulations. We literally just have homework stipulation, the amount of practice that you put in, because there's a direct correlation between how many practice problems someone does and how likely they are to pass the exam, right? So we have 3 sort of modules that we need people to complete. And we say you have to complete these and we'll keep retrying them an unlimited amount of time until you get 90% plus on all of them. Okay. So that's a really good method. And when we're looking at GCSEs and A levels, I get my clients to use these sort of practice platforms. We went through the the issue of like building our own practice platform, which isn't worth it, in my opinion, because developing is just really, really difficult. For my clients, I just tell them to go and subscribe to one of those that are already pre-made and use that as part of your stipulation. They have to complete X number of practice questions to be eligible for the money back guarantee or the free sessions that you give. We'll talk a bit more about the guarantee structure in a second, okay? But you can use weekly or daily check-in forms, right? You can use, they have to submit essays within a certain period, right? And every stipulation has to be something that is genuinely helping the student. How we frame it to a parent is, even if you didn't have this money back guarantee, we would be telling you to do these exact steps regardless, okay? So the guarantee is basically based off of the fact that if you actually join the program and you just do what we tell you to, then you will get the result, okay? Daily form keeps them accountable. That's a really good thing to add into your guarantee stipulations, whether that's daily or like twice a week or once a week, right? It gives you lots of evidence as well as to like what's going on with this student. How do I need to actually support them, right? A form like they basically submit what type of homework they've done in the past few days, have they completed the homework that you've set, etc. You know, you can only guarantee what you can control. So obviously put in conditions in writing and make sure that they've signed a contract and everything like that so you're protected. And what we found works best in terms of format is it's probably easier to do a we'll work with you for free until you get there type of thing. So if you don't make a 1 grade or 2 grade jump within this period, you get free tutoring until you do. Okay. But you can also do a money back guarantee, especially if you're coming close to the exam, maybe you're a few months away from the exam. If you don't get this grade, we'll give you the money back, right? And you have to make sure the stipulations, again, they make sense. They're generally going to help the student and they protect you. Okay. So they can be a tiny bit unreasonable. They have to put in an unreasonable amount of effort to get an unreasonable outcome, but it's still within reason, if that makes sense. It's still something that you can definitely do. You can absolutely do all the past papers that are available on physics and maths tutor and make that one of your guarantees, right? And they have to keep retrying it until they get 80%. You know, that's a lot of students are going to be doing that anyway, right? The top students are going to be doing that anyway. So don't use time scarcity play as step 5. You don't want to really talk about getting this result faster, right? Because people are going to tell you, well, I don't really care about getting this result in 2 weeks. What matters is the actual grade and the actual exam performance, right? Which is maybe 12 weeks or 12 months away, right? So instead of giving them like a speed, you can give them the speed of, okay, I'm going to get you an improvement this quickly, and that's going to prove to you that we can actually get you to the final result within the time frame. Okay. Step 6 is going to be price it. So you don't want to do hourly or monthly as your main flagship. Now we'll talk a bit about this. You want to downsell towards hourly and monthly, but your main flagship has to be a package, right? This is how you're going to differentiate yourself from everyone else. So like a few sort of bonuses here is to use an odd number. And again, the story behind this is we started off our program at 15K and that was for 150 hours, but people would instantly do the maths in their head that they're doing £100 per hour. And then that would turn off a lot of people. Why? Because a parent is not earning £100 an hour themselves. They're going to think, why would I pay that much? Another thing is that they might think that I can find tutoring somewhere else for a cheaper price, you know, and you're immediately starting to being looked as a commodity, right? So a little tweak that we made was we actually made it more expensive. We brought it down to 135 hours for the same price. And we stopped getting that objection, right? People started seeing it and viewing it as more of a, this package will get you this result and this is the amount that we'll pay. Okay, so that's why it works much better. Number 2 is anchor to the benchmarks, right? So you want to think about your cost per acquisition. It's going to be around 100 to 200 pounds, depending on the niche that you're in. So you want to be doing somewhere between 800 to 2K in your packages, okay? And ideally, you're able to collect all of that upfront. Why? Because then you're going to be doubling, tripling, most time quadrupling, forexing your money as soon as you put your money in for the ad spend, okay? And then from there, you want to use payment plans, not discounts. Okay, so if you're going to get price objections, usually they're going to be cash flow objections, right? You want to use the sales script that we're going to talk about, and you can then, if you're still struggling to sell them, then you can move them into your payment plans, break it into installments, use things like Klarna and ClearPay and PayPal Pay in 3. These are finance providers that will allow them to pay in 3 months installments, and you'll get paid up front, so you can invest directly back into ads. Okay, so that's pretty much what we just talked about, Klarna and ClearPay. Now, step 6 is build the ladder. Okay, so you're going to want two main packages: a price anchor, which is extremely expensive, where you give loads and loads of value, right? So you can do something like unlimited tutoring. What we've done before is unlimited tutoring up to 7 or 14 hours a week. So it's like 2 hours a day max, right? And you just make it 10 times more expensive than anything you'd ever do. Surprisingly, you will get people buying this regardless. Okay, we got our first ever sale when we switched this high ticket program was one of these unlimited tutoring programs, right? Like 5K sale, right? And it's a big unlock, right? And you'll notice that again, we had a money back guarantee in this. It really differentiates yourself from everyone else, right? Because you've got this completely different style of tutoring compared to everyone else, unlimited hours, And then you want your core program, which is just going to be like 1 or 2 hours a week of tutoring. It's going to be a long period, and it's going to again be within that range that we just talked about, 800 to 2K. And then you're going to have your low tickets, down sells. Okay, so something like a trial month for 600, 400 quid, something like that, right? 2 month trial, right? And then even past that, a 4 hour trial, right? And then last resort is if someone is just completely broke and they can't afford anything, you still want to be able to monetize them. You can have a question bank that you sell to them, maybe affiliate link to like a study tool that they can afford. You want to be able to monetize people as much as you can. Okay. And two rules for the ladder. So always have something genuinely expensive at the top. Not everyone's going to buy it, but the last thing you want to do is sell someone on a £600 package when they have the money to pay you 6K. Okay. Because you're losing out on 5.4K. Okay. And number two is each rung should be, again, roughly 5 to 10x below, right? So you want to have a really big difference between these options. Okay, you want to keep your offers simple. You don't want to have too many. We always recommend you only show one or two to start with. You get them, you handle their objections, and if you need to, then you show the next downsell. If you show all four of these, for example, and just ask them which one do you prefer, they're going to need time to think about it. There's too much decision fatigue. They're not going to want to buy on the call. So you have to prescribe to them based on your discovery phase of the sales call, which one is going to be best for them, and then go from there. Okay. And like we already mentioned, design for renewal. So if someone can only commit to a shorter package, that's fine. Just build in the upsell from the start. Make sure that they're aware. Obviously, we're doing a 16-week program, but we'll have to look at obviously renewing after that so we can continue supporting you through to the exam, right? And what you want to do is get your cash in as quickly as possible. So let's say at week 2 or 3, they're really happy, everything's going well. You tell them if you want to, for example, first of all, they're paying installments, you can give them a discount for paying off the rest of the program right now, right? £100 discount now. Similarly, if you want to upsell them, let's say they've just paid off their final installment and they're going to have to renew maybe next month or the month after, you can get them to, again, pay up front now, cover themselves for the next 3 months and give them a discount for that. Always pull cash forward, okay? And a extremely important one here is read Alex Hormozi's $100 million offers. It's completely free online. This is where the majority of everything I've learned from is from, okay? This is one of the best books on offers to exist, okay? But obviously, his book is a lot longer, a bit more in depth. It's going to give you the crux, and you'll see it's very, very similar to what I'm teaching here. Obviously, here it's very designed specifically towards tutoring, okay? So number 7, the final step is frame the ROI before you say the number and also after you say the number. Okay. So what do I mean by that? You're going to do the discovery phase. You want to be able to seed in the outcome. Again, if they get this grade, what does that mean for them? That means they're going to go to a good university. That means they're going to go to a good job and they're going to be earning 6 figures, whatever. Okay. If they tell that to you, what you will be able to say after they tell you it's too expensive. So, for example, you've seeded this idea that this is worth a lot because they're going to end up in these top job roles. Then you pitch, then they tell you it's too expensive. And after that, you're going to tell them if your child actually gets into Oxford or Cambridge, for example. And one of them, this is the framing that I use, right? So you're going to tell them if your child actually gets this result, they get into one of these top degrees, they end up with these 6-figure starting roles with these lifetime earnings of $1 million or more. Is that now going to be worth the 15K to you? They'll usually say yes, right? Because they've also agreed to it earlier on in the call. You get them to agree to it now. And then now all you have to do is figure out how can we actually make it so that you can afford this, right? Because if they've just told you this is worth the value, your program is worth the money, then you just have to solve for the money objection, which is breaking it into installments, downselling if you need to, etc. Okay. So make sure you've got something like this ready for yourself. You're just going to have a promise. Okay. You're going to promise them the outcome in one sentence, right? You're going to have a duration. So from this specific time until this specific time, you're going to have the core of the delivery, whether that's going to be one to one or groups, right? The cadence. Okay. You're going to have the guarantee. You're going to have the stacked components that we talked about, where it specifically solves objections that parents have. Okay. The guarantee, like I mentioned, is either going to be we work with you for free until you achieve something, or we have a money back guarantee, right? We've had people in the past do a like 50% money back guarantee as well, which can work. Um, Maybe that builds a bit more trust because they seem it's more realistic that they get 50% back rather than the full amount, right? And obviously testimonials, results, etc. And price, like I mentioned, odd number, payment plan option. So your payment plan should always be more expensive than the full price. If they piff, they should be getting a discount. So you want to frame it as it's actually the program is, for example, 2K, but if you pay in full today, it's going to be 1.8K, right? And that way you've got that $200 margin that you get for a payment plan. And that also covers your fees, your processing fees with Klarna, for example, or PayPal Pay in 3. So there should always be something that covers that. If they're going to go through Klarna, you're going to lose a bigger chunk of your fees because Klarna is paying you up front. So you want to make sure the parent is covering that. Okay. And ROI framing again. So make sure that you understand that this specific program is going to lead to this result, which is in turn going to ideally, you talk about some financial gain that they will end up having. Is that a fair investment? Okay. And then you can talk about disqualifiers as well. Here's an example of the program that we actually run right now. So 135 hours of one-to-one tutoring, unlimited support, accountability, full application support, support on from today until the exam date, right? So that includes basically until they get their offer, or if they want support all the way until the A levels exams as well, we do that. They have one person who basically holds their hand the whole way through. So someone who has not only been through the process themselves, but helped other people go through the process themselves. And we also have a study skills course where we teach them these skills to manage their time, manage their studying, and learn the best sort of revision techniques, etc. Right? And also a guarantee as well. And again, you can see this is, to be honest, we're actually priced quite competitively here because people are just priced super expensively when it comes to this type of program, and we have really good results as well. So, and you can see like in terms of how did it actually go, my first two ever calls when I moved to this program and started selling this were both 6K sales. They were broken up into installments. One of them paid on the call, the other one paid a few days after, and literally within the fifth to sixth call we were selling 15K packages as well. Okay. And the reason is the way everything is structured, the amount of proof that we have as well. It makes a massive difference. Okay. And part of this is like, well, how do you manage to do so well on your first ever call? We already had proof by the time we ran ads. We had already helped students in the past get results. Okay. So it's really difficult to run ads and be successful if you don't have some form of testimonials before. So even in that case, it could be useful to build up some testimonials like right before the exam, or like we're going on like tutor students for a low hourly rate just so you can build up testimonials, right? Because that makes a huge difference. But obviously if you're at this point, hopefully you have already tutored people in the past, you can get video testimonials from them, you can build up some proof. Okay. And if you're scared to raise your price, most people already know they should charge more, right? And you might be one of them. And the blocker is usually they don't have the sales skill or the premium branding to back that number up. And that's why you're so scared to raise the price, right? If you had extremely good sales skills and you had premium branding, you would have no issue with increasing your price, selling at a premium rate. Okay. The branding attracts better quality clients as well, and also the marketing as well. So if you already bring in leads and you want to figure out, can I increase my price? There's a few things to look at, right? First of all, you can always test price increases. But your close rate is another thing that we'll talk about later on. So there's loads of numbers. Business is very mathematical. Okay. If your close rate is 50%, 60%, anything above 35, you are probably underpriced. Okay. The chances are you're not an elite level closer, you are just underpriced. Okay. So that shows you that you should probably increase your price. If your close rate is 20%, you're probably priced correctly. You need to improve your sales skills so you can move up to 35% in terms of close rate. Okay. And again, if you're going to test it, let's say you're at 40%, you want to test it, you can obviously test on 50% of your new leads, right? And you can see which one is bringing you the better return. And what you want to look at is profit, not revenue. And again, another example of how this happened in real life and how I've seen this happen. We have a summer school program. Okay. For the longest time, this program was £380. And the margins was razor thin on this, right? So year by year, we tested the new price. For the next year, we moved up to £480, and then the year after, we moved up to £580. And what we found was two things. Okay, so when we went from 380 to 480, we just had a massive increase in profit. Okay, we went from 480 to 580, we had no increase in profit. So what you'll notice is obviously there's going to be less people taking up that offer. Okay, at 480, we had less people taking up the offer, but because the price was such a big difference, you had like 10k more profit within that one month. Okay, when we moved from 480 to 580, we averaged around, I think it was 110, 120 students every summer. We're at the 480 price point. We moved up to 580, and it was more around 90. Right, I'm just saying this off the top of my head. I'm not sure if that's completely accurate, but like from my memory, we ended up with the same amount of profit, and that told me actually this price range is like the upper limit of where people are wanna where we're going to bring more profit in, right? Because the market is going to tell you the price range where you get the most profit. That is the market telling you that is the right price for this program. Okay. If, for example, we moved up to 680, what I would suspect is we'd have even less students and we'd have even less profit. Okay. But the reason why I kept it at 580 is, well, if we have 90 students and we have the same level of sort of profit, we can provide a higher quality service to those 90 students because we're not over bloated, right? Now, there is another option as well where maybe it's better to keep it at 480 and get 120 students because you're going to have more referrals coming in, right? But that's getting a bit more technical now. Mainly what you want to do is you want to figure out the price point where that brings you the most profit, okay? And that's how you do it. So here is your done when checklist. So go through all of this and then we'll move on to module 3. Okay, module 3, landing page and VSL. So what we want to get from this module is a written landing page, a fully scripted VSL that turns ad clicks into booked calls. And where most tutoring ads are going wrong is most tutoring ads point to a lead form. Someone fills that in, they end up in some spreadsheet, and then somebody has to chase them, okay? There is no step between the submission of someone's details, so the parent puts their details in, and them actually becoming a sale. There's no education step between there. There's nowhere to sort of educate them on the company, educate them on the results that you have, educate them on the reason why they should even trust you. Okay. And we ran exactly this format. We had an expensive call center. So like the one way this can work is if you call up leads within 60 seconds of them submitting their form, right? And we invested a lot into having a call center to do this for us. Okay. It costed us 1K or 2K a month roughly. So we were doing 4K a month recurring within 3 months. This is when I went from 0 to 4K a month, right? Problem was I was spending 3K of that on ads to get new students, and then obviously 1 or 2K on call centers. My profit was basically zero. Okay. And I was doing this every month, and I thought actually this is going to compound, right? And which it did to an extent, like it compounded. But the problem is everyone's going to churn by the summer, and then you're going to have to start again, right? And that makes it very difficult, okay, to scale. So what we switched is, first of all, we switched to a high ticket offer, right? And secondly, we switched to a VSL application page. Okay, this is where you have a video that does the selling and the qualifying before people actually reach your calendar. Okay, and there's a lot of other things that changed during this sort of example where I was doing this 4K a month recurring and spending 4K on ads. But this is just part of it, right? Another thing was I was doing trial classes. Again, my offer was completely different. But again, we'll talk about all of that now. This is definitely part of it. The one thing that we changed is we moved to a landing page and a VSL. Okay. So the buyer's journey in 2026 is they'll see an ad, they'll then get sent to the VSL page, they'll get educated on your process and background, so they're going to understand a bit more about exactly what you do and why you are the best person to be tutoring their child. Then they book, and then they're going to go and check if you're legit. They're going to check your Instagram. They're going to Google you. Okay. The middle and last step is invisible. This is what decides everything. Before a parent actually books, they get educated by your VSL, right? They understand the results that you've achieved. They understand your unique offer and your positioning. Okay. And after they book, they go on the internet to see if you're actually legit. Okay. If there's no social presence, they're not going to be trusting you, right? They might even no show. They might air you, etc. Right? But if there is a social presence, then they're much more likely to come to the call a bit more pre-sold. Okay. And this is also a reason why your Instagram is going to be a big part of your funnel. So if they go to your Instagram, they should be able to see, like we've had clients in the past where parents have gone to their Instagram, they've seen the way they speak in the ads or the way they speak in the reels and seen how strong their public speaking skills are. And the parent has literally said, like, I can tell from the way you speak in your videos that you're going to be a good teacher. So I want to go ahead with you. Okay. So that's a really big factor about presentation in your ads and your reels. Okay. We've had other people who have Instagram reels of them teaching, right, on a whiteboard. They're teaching a concept. And again, parents are much more pre-sold because they see that and they know, actually, my kid, I'm sure, is going to enjoy this type of lesson and they're going to actually benefit from this type of teaching style. Okay. So all of that education process in the background is super important, right? So you only need 3 pages, right? And we ran 3 pages only for our Oxford program, literally up until like the last few months, right? So the majority of us, we started in September all the way until like the summer of 2026. We've ran literally just 3 pages. Okay. And that is the VSL landing page, the book a call page, and the thank you page. Okay. So the VSL landing page is going to have a call out to the specific type of parents you're looking for, right? Parents of sixth formers, parents of GCSE students, whatever. You have a headline, which is what your offer is, your sub headline again. And then the actual VSL, you're going to have a qualifying form. This is going to ask them some questions. This is going to allow you to figure out what type of parent is a good lead for me. Okay, is it someone who has poor grades, or someone who has decent grades and they're looking to move up, right? Or someone who wants to start tutoring right now, or someone who wants to start tutoring after the summer? These are the type of questions you're going to ask. Okay, we do a long form, right? So a lot of tutoring coaches or whatever, if you see them, they'll literally just run this. Okay, but we prefer, and what we found has a lower cost per schedule, is when you add long form. So we add student results, we add our specific approach, we add our guarantee, we add more details on the founders, we add all of this social proof at the bottom. Okay, and if they want to have a look and understand more about us, they can just scroll down on the website. Okay, the book a call page is literally just going to have the calendar, nothing else. So as soon as they fill in the form, they're going to be able to see this. And the thank you page is going to have a short second video, which is going to set up expectations for the call and the next steps. This makes sure your show rate is good. And this also makes sure that your close rate is going to be good, because you're going to solve the majority of the objections on that thank you page. Before they attend your call, you want to make sure they've watched this video. Okay. And so why a form between the page and the calendar? This is a good way. You're not going to start this off, but you're going to start doing this later on. First of all, it's going to add some friction. Okay. And a quick lesson on friction. Friction is basically, how difficult is it to book a slot on your calendar and become a client? Okay. Now, if you have no friction at all, you could literally just have a form on Facebook where they click on it and their details get sent to you. Okay. Now, you're going to get a bunch of dead leads, people who give you spam phone numbers. They're not interested at all. They're not serious. Okay. But if you add some more frictions, you add some questions in there, you take them to a website and you make them fill the form there. So their information, their phone number isn't pre-filled into the form. They have to actually type it out. Much more likely it's going to be a real phone number, right? So there's levels of friction that you can add. If you add more questions, you're probably going to have more friction. If you add less questions, there's going to be less friction. Okay. Now, low friction can work. You just have to be able to, for example, call them up immediately. Okay. Again, with the lead form, we do run lead forms with our clients, and we still send people to the VSL page after they filled in the lead form. But what they have to do, if we're going to run a lead form, is you have to be able to call them up within 60 seconds and actually convert them into a booked call and triage them as well, right? But what we do as you grow is we start disqualifying people on the questionnaire, because what we found out, a really good disqualifier for us, is if someone says they don't want to start tutoring within the next 1 to 2 weeks, we disqualify them, because we've just found they don't end up buying anyway. They waste our time on the sales call, and if they're going to start 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, they're going to forget about us. we've wasted our time on our sales call. They usually never come back. Okay, so we started disqualifying people. We send them to a nurture pipeline, or we send them emails, etc., and do it that way. Okay, but to start with, if you're watching this course, you're probably a bit more of a beginner. You're not going to want to disqualify much. The goal of your lead form is going to be basically to gain information. So you're going to understand what questions lead to what type of leads. Okay. And then you can start to later down the line, you can start disqualifying based off the question answer. So you do a bit of an analysis on the lead form. Okay. So you build it in this order, and you're going to have the offer, you're going to have the traffic and the messaging headline, you build the VSL, and then you build everything else, and the page aesthetics can be done last. Okay, how do we actually do this? You Step one, write the headline. Okay, the headline's job is to confirm in under 2 seconds that everything that they saw in the ad is actually what you're offering. Okay, so you're going to offer them a specific outcome, and you're going to mention who this is for, and then you're going to have the guarantee in the headline. Okay, this is what they're going to read. Then you're going to have to script the VSL. Okay, we're going to have a template below that you can look through. Now, 8 to 15 minutes can work, 3 minutes can work. You can test different lengths. What I would actually recommend, we've sort of changed our opinion on this a bit. Probably start out because it's easier with like a 3-minute VSL. Play rates nowadays are really low. And they're just getting lower and lower. People can't be bothered to watch for a long VSL. Okay, so especially for tutoring, we'd probably just want a 3-minute video, and we're going to talk through the structure in a second. Okay, step 3 is build the page around the video. So the VSL is going to sit directly under the headline, and above the fold, what you're going to have is your application. Okay, and what does it mean above the fold? That means as soon as they load the phone page, they are going to see the VSL, and right underneath, it's also going to say fill in this application. So they don't have to scroll down to figure out what to do. They can immediately see what their next steps are. Okay. And step 4 is going to be make an application, not a booking. So you want their first step to be some form of lead filling, lead qualification step, right? So you're going to have some questions there. That's going to add a bit of friction. So they can't just immediately give them your info, right? They have some questions, and what we found is you want to give them a bit of value with the questions, right? So instead of asking them because it's give and take, okay? If you ask them for their information, you're asking for quite a lot, but if you're asking them some questions that's actually going to help them solve the problem, like what is the concern right now, like what specific things have you tried in the past, etc. And you'll see more and more people are starting to use these things like quiz funnels, where like it's interactive and it actually provides some value while they're actually filling in the form, right? You want to be giving value before you give them the step to fill in their information. Okay, but we'll talk about that more later on. So you have the 4 to 6 application questions. One of them that I mentioned already is like ask them when they're ready to start tutoring. Another thing is like, again, you can ask them what grade their child is at, what they tried before, etc. Okay, and then obviously make everything look premium. So these are the steps to build out your landing page. Just being very specific. How do you do this? You can use AI tools now. You can go ahead and look at my landing page in the description and screenshot it and ask AI to recreate it, right? And that's a really good way for you to understand a VSL script that we would use as well, and also a tally questionnaire script that we would use. Like, what type of questions would we ask, right? And here is the template. This is the structure that you're going to use, right? Again, you can use the image from my landing page. And here is the VSL script, okay? Now, this is something that requires skill. So obviously use this, but you're going to be wanting to iterate on this. There's a reason why we do done for you build outs, because I can show you how to play the violin, but you're never going to be able to play as good as someone who's been doing it for years. Okay, unless you've practiced for years as well. Okay, so obviously use this as best as you can, but consistently try and improve this. Okay, based on like knowledge that you can always Google and watch videos on how to write a really good VSL script, etc. You can watch our VSL script, etc. So you start out with a call out. If you're parent in this year group, a parent of a child in this year group, targeting this specific outcome, and this trigger moment is happening, this is for you. Obviously, give them the promise, give them credibility immediately. So you want to go through all of the results that you've gotten, etc. You can describe the problem in their own words. It's going to be really useful from ICP, from module 1. Okay, and then you can talk about what they have tried and why it isn't working, and then start to differentiate yourself with your mechanism. Again, add some more proof. offer and guarantee again, and sort of objection sweep. Okay, handle all the objections. Okay, so this is a decent structure to start off with for your VSLs. How do you actually film your VSL? Very quick on this. Must be landscape. I've had too many people who become clients. They record their VSL in vertical by accident, have to end up re-recording it. Okay, must be landscape. We do minimal editing now because we found it doesn't make much of a difference. So just subtitles is fine, right? You can add some B-roll if you want to, but like honestly, yeah, it's not worth the effort in our opinion. Now, what's important is you dress properly. Okay, you dress properly in a suit, you look smart, and you look premium. Okay, because you're going to be asking for figures. You're going to ask for premium rates. You're going to have to look the part. Okay, you can't record it in your bedroom, and you will never see me recording my VSLs in my bedroom like I'm here, right? It's really good to have a professional looking room, so either an office space, good lighting. We've offered many people to go rent a studio for 40 quid an hour and get it done that way, or pay UGC actor to do it. Now you want to use your teleprompt app, so you don't want to actually memorize the script. Again, too many people do this. Use your teleprompter app so you can just read the script off. Okay, and then if your audio isn't good, run it through Adobe Podcast. This was going to make it sound a bit more like a studio microphone. Okay, and if you don't have a decent background, this is what we used for our VSL on the Oxbridge program. Is we just stood against a blank wall, we removed the background, and we generated an AI background and we put that in. Okay, now because my wall is green, this one right here, what we did was we made sure the background had that same hint of green around me, so it looks a bit more realistic. Okay, and this is a decent workaround to keep your costs down. But even now, like if we're refilming VSLs, we usually go to a studio now, or we get a UGC actor to do it. Okay, and again, this matters a lot more than you think. Okay, because you're going to just lose parents because they see that you're in a dingy bedroom and you've got bad audio and like you don't seem like someone who is premium. So the premium buyers are not going to go through your funnel. Okay, so this is where I think most people lose leads. And the second video is going to be thank you VSL. So you just want to confirm their booking in this script. Say thank you for booking a call with us. We want to we usually tell them to go to their email and click yes on the Google Meet invitation that they got sent, so it actually shows up in the calendar. Then you just give them a bit of a background of exactly what's going to happen in this 30-minute call. The fact that you're going to ask them questions to understand if they're going to be a good fit for the program, right? Tell them what to have ready for the actual call and what happens if they're not a fit, right? Mention that, like, obviously if you're not a good fit for the program, we'll tell you where to go so you actually have some value coming out of this call. Okay, and then underneath that page you're going to have an FAQ section. And last thing, application questions. Here are some examples. Again, you can have a look at what we run in our application section on our webpage as well. Okay, and just to show you a quick example of how everything looks. Okay, so you can see the URLs if you want to go to these, right? So we've got the headline, we've got a bit of urgency here, and then we've got our tally form here, and then we've got this long form scroll, right, where we've got all of our testimonials and everything. And then obviously once they've filled in the form, they get sent to book their call. They can't do anything else on this page apart from book a call. And then you have the VSL thank you page, you have a video, and you have the FAQs, and then you have testimonials again. Okay, this is what you build. You can put screenshots of this into ChatGPT. It should be able to build something similar for you. So here is your done when checklist. Let's move on to module 4. Module 4, setting up the backend. So the outcome of this module is you should have your booking, your payments, your tracking, your reminders, everything set up so it runs without you touching them. Okay, and I know a lot of people, at least from people I've spoken to, tutors I've spoken to, find it quite overwhelming, right? Some people think it's easy, but they don't manage to get it to actually work or bring in actual sales, and many others are not very techy. Okay, these are just quotes from people, real tutors that I've spoken to. So what I'm going to try and do is make everything as quick as possible so the setup is easy and that it actually delivers value to you. It saves you time and actually helps you make more money. So to start off with, there are 7 things that we want to set up here. You can see them here. How we're going to do is we're going to start up with the domain and the page. So if you don't have a domain, you don't have a website, then buy one, right? I think it's like $12 a year. Most people will have hopefully a website by now, but if you do, right, once you've got one, you set up a subdomain. Okay, so your main website doesn't have to be your funnel. Okay, you can have a different website. If you have Wix, whatever, you can set up your main website. What you do is a subdomain. To just ask ChatGPT how to set something up like this. Okay, it's important that you do everything via a domain name because you want yourself to be Googleable, right? If people Google your brand and they see nothing, it can be a big detractor to your credibility, right? So don't use Linktree or Google Form or whatever. Try and have an actual landing page. And for all this, you can use like apply.yourwebsitename.com or like offer.yourwebsitename.com. Okay. Step 2 is calendar. So these are the settings you want to set up on your calendar. You can use the Go High Level calendar, or you can use Calendly, which is free. But usually we would recommend buying Go High Level, which is like $97 a month. There are some free trials available. We've got our link in the description. I think I'll add it here as well. It's a 14-day free trial with some bonuses, and then you can use that to set everything up. But regardless, you need a calendar booking page, somewhere where people can book in for meetings. Meeting duration is 30 minutes. Okay, that's going to be enough to cover the full sales script. It could go over to 45, but keep it short so people don't get scared off. You'll see if you look at my actual program, we have it as 1 hour, but that's just for logistical reasons because my sales rep is on 2 different offers. And if we have it at 30 minutes, what you can do is you can set up post buffer times, right? So you do it 30 minutes with the post buffer time at 15. So no one can book in for that whole 45-minute slot if someone's already booked in, That makes sure if you run over, you're not going to have any issues, right? And the reason why our one looks a bit different is because of our technical issues with post buffers, okay? But for you, just do this. Next thing is booking interval. Now, I've had a few clients being told bad information from other tutor coaches because people tell them to use the option which says look busy. That sort of blocks off your calendar availability to make you look more busy. Do not do this, okay? Make your booking interval 15 minutes so there's more availability. And this is, again, what Alex Hormozi has suggested based off of thousands of businesses that he's looked through the data of. And the more available you are, the more likely a parent will book a time where they are actually available themselves and not going to be like stretching themselves out, right? And you want them to be available and you want them to be sitting in a quiet space and ready to take a full call with you, okay? Minimum notice 3 hours because you want some prep time, okay? And then date range should be 2 to 4 days, okay? If you let them book anything more than 4 days out, so it's Monday, you let them book for Sunday or later on, your show rate is going to go down, okay? Now, the only time you're going to be able to do something like that is if, let's say, you're fully booked for the next 4 days. You should open up your calendar for 7 days because otherwise people are going to be sent to your page and not going to be able to book a call. You're wasting your money on Facebook ads, okay? Stage 3 is application in front of the calendar. So depending on your program, you are either going to run a tally form for the questionnaire, similar to what I showed you in the previous module, or what you can do in Go High Level, I believe maybe in Calendly as well, is you can have the questionnaire directly in the calendar. So then you're not going to need 3 pages. Depends on what you're going to run. But if you're going to run a calendar, you can have the form and you can have it ask questions, and you can just move the form to show before they get to see the calendar timings, okay? So that's one thing you can do. Otherwise, just do a standard calendar on your second page and you have a tally questionnaire on your first page. But there is a bit of text setup that goes behind a tally questionnaire, okay? Step 4 is pipeline and automations behind it. So the target show rate is going to be 50 to 75%. If you're below that, then this step is almost always the reason, okay? You want to have the correct automations to reactivate your no-shows, to send reminders to people, okay? And to also email and SMS people who became a lead, so they submitted their form questionnaire, but they didn't end up self-booking themselves into a call. Because what you're going to have people who fill in the lead form, but only 50% of them are actually going to book into your calendar. So you need automations to actually bridge that gap, okay? So what's going to happen is you're going to want to set up opportunity stages on each stage of the Go High Level. So there's going to be someone who's a new lead, a booked call, showed call, a closed call, and then you can have options of no show and not interested. So you can drag the prospect in Go High Level across these, and I'll show you what this looks like in Go High Level in a moment. Okay, and you're going to want 3 sequences. So when someone books a call, you're going to have automations to set up. You're going to have automations send them reminders, and again, you can get them to set expectations. How are you going to do that? You're going to send them your thank you page VSL, what I just showed you earlier. Okay, so this is the booked call sequence. The next thing is lead no booking. Lead no booking is when someone becomes a lead, like I mentioned, and they don't book themselves into the calendar. So you're going to have around a 7 to 14 day sequence that actually goes through trying to activate them and book them into the calendar. Okay, that's emails and SMSs. Okay, next is no shows. So if someone doesn't show up to the call after they booked, you want to reactivate them with email and SMS again. Okay, and there's going to be some templates below that you can utilize as well. Quickest way is use ChatGPT or Gemini to actually sort of customize these templates to your specific tutoring company. Okay, now step 5 is you want to set up your payments. Okay, now you want to have your payment links ready. This means you're going to have to set up your PayPal or your Stripe. Obviously, most people are going to use Stripe. Okay, we've had people in the past who didn't have this set up on their calls. They end up fumbling for the payment, right? And a lot of people aren't going to expect to close on their first call, but it could absolutely happen. You know, and if you're not ready with the payment link, you might lose out on that sale. Okay, so have your installment plans ready. In Go High Level, again, we highly recommend Go High Level. You can set it up so that the installments are auto charged to the card, so it will charge on the 1st of every month for the next 3 months, and you don't have to worry about actually billing them, right? And you'd have to ask them to pay. You don't have to do any of that. It's just going to automatically charge their credit card. Okay. And then a simple written agreement. So that's going to be if someone's splitting into installments, you want to have a contract signed, because if they specifically try and, for example, ghost you and not pay, that's something you want to prevent. If they're going to go through Klarna or anything like that as well, we also recommend a contract, because sometimes people are going to try and charge back if they're unhappy with your service. So make sure that you're prepared with all of that. Okay. Step 6 is comms. So obviously you can use whatever you want. We use WhatsApp Business. This keeps it separate from your personal number, and it makes sure that you can provide support. Step 6 is tracking, and you're going to want to set up your meta pixel. Okay. Again, there's 3 pages that we have, right? So the first page is going to have a page view and a view content section. Okay. The second page is a lead. This means that if they made it to that book a call page, you're going to tell Meta that they've become a lead. And the final thing is, if they make it to the thank you call, you can set them as a schedule. And you can do a purchase event. We haven't bothered with this because usually you're not going to have enough events for it to be useful to Meta, right? But you want to set these up. Very simple stuff. If you just screenshot this, send it to ChatGPT, it will show you how to set all of this up. Okay. And again, I know a lot of people will prefer everything to be pre-built for them. We do have 2 options. So we have the DIY Vault, which you can access below if you want to buy that. The big benefit of that is it's going to have the specific templates that we use. So everything like written out, and all you have to do is import it to Go High Level and then do the tech setup that way. And it's like very step-by-step, goes through everything. And then the main difference there, because you can do all of the DIY Vault stuff by just watching this video, right? The main difference there is you're going to have consulting access to me as well. And that's how Sagnic, for example, is able to scale to 20K a month, right? To be honest, you didn't ask me many questions, but that's a big factor. You get to ask me questions whenever you need in terms of this entire system, okay? And the other option is a DFY setup. That will get you pretty much up and running within a week, and we just launch everything for you. And then again, you get access to consult with us, ask us questions whenever you need to scale, okay? But once you've set up these 7 steps, you're ready to go on to the next section. There's some templates here, right? You can utilize these. And in terms of the actual booking flow, we already talked about this. You're going to be going from add to VSL page, application form, then they book a call, then they get a thank you page, and then you're going to get an instant confirmation. So as soon as they booked the call, they should get an email confirming it. You get these reminders at these intervals, and they have the call, and then you ideally get them to pay on the call and you onboard them, which we're going to go over in module 8. Okay. And you want everything to be tracked in your pipelines in Go High Level so that it fires off the different sequences as soon as it happens, it does it automatically. Okay, and here's your done when checklist. Let's move on to module 5 now. So module 5, ad scripts. So the goal of this is to have 5 ads written, filmed, and ready to upload. Okay, we're gonna have 4 variations and 1 static image ad. This is what we're gonna usually launch with for most of our clients as well. The main rule here is the hook is 80% of what makes an ad work. Okay, everything after it is just a reason to actually believe the hook. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be really focusing a lot on the first 3 seconds of every script. And what is the structure that we're going to run? So 4 different hooks, 1 singular body that we'll use for all of them, and then a static image ad. Okay, now there's going to be a lot of discourse online in terms of how should you split up your budgets, what type of ad set budget optimization or campaign budget optimization, what sort of method are you going to use. This is what we found works in tutoring. Okay, rule of thumb is we want to have £5 per day per ad minimum. So if you're gonna have 3 ads, £15 a day, right? Now you can do a bit more or a bit less. Okay, you can do a bit more or a bit less. So again, a lot of people will actually say £15 a day, maybe you just want to run single ad because it's just not enough data, right? But you can absolutely just follow this general rule of thumb. Okay, so if you're running 5 ads, £25 a day, right? Anything less than this is probably an issue. Okay, because if you're not putting in, let's say you're running 10 ads at £25 a day, each ad is getting £2.50 a day of spend. Like, you're just not going to be able to make decisions off of that, you know? So most people are going to launch somewhere between £15 and £30 a day. And what we usually will do is somewhere within this range as well. So this is the sort of program that we'll run. Now the hook formulas, this is the one that we specifically use. This exact hook, you'll see it in our ads library if you look at my ads. And this has resulted in roughly it's more of a 3.7x ROAS at my ad spend level. And that's across all of my offers. So actually we've got some offers that perform better. So Oxbridge does roughly a 6x, right? And so this specific hook is roughly the one that's brought us 6x. But if I'm including my other offers, so Tutor Launch and my 11 plus tutoring program, and if we just go through my entire time running ads, again, a lot of that period has been trial and error. This is our average, but right now with Oxbridge, we're doing a 6x. So we're really investing a lot more into ads right now with Oxbridge. But you can see smaller budgets with clients, they've hit 12 or 36x's, right? And there's a really quick example of a client that we've just got some more results within a time frame of us filming this video. So you might have seen already the testimonial or case study that we did with Sai, who went from 0 to 14k a month within a month. We recorded some new ads for him, and you can see what he's achieved so far in this first week of launching this new ad. £183 of spend, 2.8k rev. He's actually missed a £700 sale, another one that he made here. So his return is actually much higher than 15x as well. Okay, so you can see a lot of our clients with smaller budgets are doing crazy returns, right? Obviously, as you scale that to £100 to £200 a day, your return is going to be a bit lower. Okay. But why does this hook work? It speaks directly to the parent, not the student. It calls out the exact audience and the names, and it removes the risk immediately. We mentioned the guarantee within the first few seconds. Okay, I've seen people and I've consulted with people who have their guarantee at the end of the ad. You know, no one's watching that far. So you want to mention that in the hook. Okay. And you can run your own version. So just put your specific outcome and your outcome here, and then that's going to be your new ad. And here are some other variations that you can run. So you've got angle 1, you've got angle 2, 3, 4. Just fill in these, and that's going to be your first 4 ads done. Okay. And what do we do for the static? For the static, you literally do this exact format, but as an image. Okay. So you ask ChatGPT to make an image of this, and that will do. So template ad. So here's a template of the body. Obviously, you've got the hooks that we just talked about, but then the body is going to talk about the problem, right? So you're going to agitate the problem. You're going to explain exactly what type of situation they're in. You're going to build up your credibility. Why are you the right person to help? The mechanism, then the risk reversal. Again, you mention the guarantee again, and then you tell them to click on the link, right? So it doesn't have to be too long, 30 to 60 seconds is completely fine. Now, 3 formats. So talking head, that's going to be you in a premium setting, like we mentioned for the VSL, where you just say the script using a teleprompter. We've been using this a lot, so AI avatar ads, and this allows you to use different races, different people of wearing different suits, talking on stage, in a podcast studio, all of these different formats, right? And again, if you're gonna, what it comes down to with ads is if your ad person in the ad is an Asian person, you're going to attract Asian clients. If it's a white person, you're going to attract white people. And this allows you to sort of deal with that. So there's going to be specific races that are going to be good type of clients. They're going to have more money, for example, and want to invest more in education. You can utilize this to work on that, right? So we usually use something like this, a British head teacher speaking on stage saying XYZ, okay? And obviously check your local laws and whatever. Make sure that you're not damaging any laws, okay? And static image ad, I already mentioned, just mention the guarantee, and it can literally be really basic. It works really well. So production standards, I already talked about. This has been something that has failed very many times, is ads filmed in your bedroom, bad lighting, bad audio. This is low effort, okay? And the parents will probably not stick around for the first second at all, because as soon as you see a bad quality video, you just skip past it. Even if they do, they still think you're unserious. Maybe they think you're a scam, right? It plants a lot of doubt before you've even spoken to them, okay? And that doubt is very hard to undo. That's why what we prefer is studio shot ads that look premium, right? You want to have 4K camera, good background, right? Dressed really well. If you don't have a background, film it and then do an AI background, okay, that looks realistic. Obviously use the teleprompter app so that everything is easy and quick to record and it sounds professional. And then obviously fix the audio with Adobe Podcast. And now what we do is ads should obviously have a bit more higher quality than your VSL, right? You can use captions.ai. That's an AI editing app that we've used, and it's quite cheap. You can hire an editor. Now some ads will do fine. Again, the one that I just showed you, that's a completely basic ad. So he's in a studio setup. He's got a 2-cam setup from Sai, the one that I just showed you, the 15X. He's got 2-cam setup, so it switches from cam 1 to cam 2. So that builds a trust, right? That builds that premium feel, because it's expensive. It's expensive to have 2 different cameras in a studio setup, right? So you just had that, and you just had subtitles below his chin, and that was more than enough, okay? But the main idea is the premium feel. And then refreshing your creatives, you want to do this once a month at minimum. Look at which ads brought the most leads, so which one had a good cost per lead. But also, if you can set up UTMs, check ChatGPT how to set up UTMs, you'll be able to see which ads brought the best leads and which ads actually brought the sales. Those are the ones that you want to double down on, okay? And then you can turn off everything else, especially the ones that aren't performing, and keep the winner, launch fresh creatives. All you have to do is make variations on that hook, okay? How do you do that? You make the hook. So if we go back to the hook, you can rephrase the hook. You can use the hook in a different setting, someone else saying it. You could have a different person saying it in a different place. You can have a different background, all of these things. These are all variations on a hook, okay? And that's what you have to do. So you need a decent level of actual data before you do refresh your ads to actually get some value from this. And here is your done when, and let's move on to module 6. So module 6, actually launching your ads. So the goal of this is to have live campaigns and for you to know what KPIs, which is basically the metrics that you're aiming for, okay? And so you need to understand the full system. Remember, they're going to look you up before they book a call or after it, wherever it is. They're going to need to see some social proof, okay? And if there isn't, they might ignore your ad, okay? So you want to make sure that everything is set up correctly. So for your Instagram and your Facebook, you want to set it up like this: professional headshot. You want to have your name here rather than a tutoring company, because this is a personal brand. People like to be sold from people, okay? They don't want to be sold from a nameless company. Your username can be your company name, just so they're primed to the actual name. Your bio should be something sort like this, with the link of the actual VSL page in your bio as well. Okay, and then your highlights, you can have your testimonials, you can have some screenshots about your program as well. We always recommend post 9 reels of yourself before you launch. Okay, why? Because that fills up the grid and that makes it look like you're an actual real person rather than a bot. Okay, so this is the budget that we've just talked about. You're going to set the objective to leads and conversions, okay, and optimizing for an event. Okay, now the event, that's the exact that's what we're talking about with the pixeling, with the pixel conditioning. Okay, now for you, if you're starting on a low budget, you're going to want to set your event to leads, because you're not going to have enough booked calls to optimize for booked calls. Okay, so you're going to get more leads, you want to optimize towards leads. Okay, later on you can optimize towards booked calls. Now for placement, just let Meta do its thing. Don't do anything here. The one thing you can do is you can restrict it to age 35 plus, so only parents see your actual ads rather than kids, and obviously put all 5 creatives in. So what we like to do is ad set budget optimization. So that means you have one campaign, 5 different ad sets, and in each ad set you have the one creative. Okay, and what you'll do is you'll set a budget per ad, so around £5 per ad set. Okay, and then you'll be able to tell exactly which ad is winning, okay, which one is bringing the best cost per lead, etc. Okay, so rule 1 is don't touch things. Okay, let it run for at least 7 days so you can actually see things working. Okay, the only time you move things is once you hit KPI. So if you hit 2 to 3 times your KPI, okay, so if you spent our KPI, we'll go through them, is £20 cost per lead. If you hit £50 cost per lead and you didn't get any leads, for example, you spent £50 and you got nothing, then you switch something. Okay, otherwise it's too early. Rule 2 is scale gradually. So once you found something that is working, for example, like Sai just showed you, he just went from £200 to 2.8k. You scale that now. Okay, you start increasing your budget by 25% every few days. Okay, rule 3 is one channel properly. Okay, we don't even do Google ads, we don't do TikTok ads, we're still mastering Facebook ads, so you don't have to think about these shit. You just have to focus on mastering Facebook ads first. Okay, KPIs we just talked about. So 10 to 20 pounds of cost per lead for you guys, for most people. Again, it can vary, but even for us, we're within the £25 range. We're a bit more high ticket for our cost per lead. If your cost per lead hits 2 to 3 times this, so you spend 50 to 60 pounds and you don't get anything, then you have to do something. You have to fix your ads. Okay, cost per booked call, same thing. And then cost per acquisition. So this is how much do you spend before you get a customer. Okay, this doesn't mean you spent £200 and you're immediately going to have a customer. You could end up spending £600, and by that point you manage to actually sell 3 of your customers that you've been in contact with. Okay, so you have to let this run for a bit. Okay, an offer, like we mentioned, your show rate should be 50 to 75%, close rate should be 20 to 35, and your return should be a minimum of 3x. And as you've seen, a 10x or 12 to 36x is achievable. We've seen this with our clients. Okay, so my average that I showed you, 3.7x, is very high spend and at a very high ticket. So there's many things that just aren't very similar to every other tutoring business, right? If someone is running my system and is doing sort of casual tutoring, GCSE A levels, they can end up at £400 a month spend and have much better returns. So you can see the returns that we've got from our clients, and these guys, I think their testimonials are linked at the front page of this program, of this course. Okay, obviously don't expect these. We actually recommend that on your first month, you should be prepared to break even or just under break even. Okay, because it takes batches of creatives to actually get good returns. And especially if you're DIYing this, right? Obviously we had experts, it's our whole team who set this up for our clients and managed to achieve these crazy returns. Okay, if you're DIYing, it'll take much longer to actually learn all of this. As long as you're breaking even and you have money to invest back in, that's going to be good enough. Okay, the main thing is you want to look at your KPIs and make sure that you're within range. Okay, so last thing is tracking it. Okay, so next thing is we have to track everything. Okay, build a spreadsheet and make sure that you're filling this in. You can use, nowadays, if you have a business plan on ChatGPT, you can get it to fill everything in for you. So these are the things that you want to have tracked. Okay, and what I want to talk about mainly is your revenue. Okay, so new revenue, This is contracted revenue. So if you sell a 2.8K package, track that, okay? If you know they're going to pay you 2.8K, track it. And then track the cash collected. So how much did they actually pay you? So maybe they only paid £500 for their first installment. So this is important, okay? Your LTGP, this is your lifetime gross profit or lifetime value. This is how much, this is the number that you're going to have, okay? How much money are you going to make from one client, okay? And then your cost per acquisition, which is how much money you just spent on the ads. That is the fundamental business value, okay? If you're spending £200 on ads and every client brings you 2.8K, that is a crazy return, 10x plus, okay? Obviously, you want your cash collected to be good as well. So if your cash collected is break even, right, 1x or 3x, then you're good, okay? You're safe. But we recommend 3x cash collected, right? Because that way you have some money in the bank, okay? That means you spend £200 on ads and you get £600 back within the same month, ideally, right? And obviously, make sure you've calculated your ROAS and cash collected, etc. All of this stuff is self-explanatory. Just make sure you're booking all of this stuff. You're tracking all of this stuff, sorry. So here's what improvement is actually going to look like, okay? So this is what you might expect. Month one, your cost per lead is high, $50, $100 for a cost per booked call. Your ad spend is $400. So you booked 4 calls in month one, okay, after £400 of spend, $400 of spend. Your cost per acquisition is $200 because you managed to sell 2 of those 4 calls, okay? And your revenue is for 2K, so that return gives you 5x. That's crazy, okay? That's really good. What you might see going into month 3 is you can keep the same spend, but you've optimized everything now, okay? You've got better messaging, you've got better branding, you've got better ad scripts, okay? And you got more testimonials maybe, and your cost per lead is now lower, but call is lower, same ad spend, your acquisition costs have halved, and you've managed to maybe sell people on higher ticket programs as well because of the better branding. And with the same amount, you've achieved a 20x, okay? This is the goal. This is what you want to do. You want to consistently optimize and improve. Now, even at a 5x, you can increase your ad spend, to be honest. You don't want to be at $400 again for the month 3. You want to increase your ad spend. So actually troubleshooting your ads. Now, this is going to be too much to cover in one sitting. We've got a bit of structure here where you can look at what to do, but this is fundamentally why we even have a coaching program, because troubleshooting is business, right? All you're doing is troubleshooting exactly what is the constraint right now, and then how do I fix that constraint so that I can increase my ad spend and make more money. So I don't like looking at front-end metrics that much, okay? The only time we look at front-end metrics like impressions and clicks and CTR and all of this stuff is when you're just not getting any leads at all, because that means there is a really big creative problem, okay? But usually if you've made a decent creative, you're not going to have this issue. But if you have impressions and no clicks, your hook is probably broken, go to module 5. If you're getting clicks and no applications, your VSL page is probably the issue. So look at module 3. It could be page load speed. It could be the actual copy on the page is just terrible, okay? Now, this is where most people actually have problems. So they might get applications, but people aren't booking in, okay? So there might be too much friction on the calendar. There's not enough availability on the calendar, right? You maybe want to increase the time range for when people can book in, okay? Or maybe you need to add in some bonuses for people booking in. They get a free £100 gift card or £100 credit to your program, etc. Your bookings are good, but your low show rate. So reminder sequences are maybe not firing out. Maybe you're booking people too far out, like they're booking 5-6 days out. Maybe you're not doing enough setting. You're not actually confirming their calls with them. Let's say you're getting lots of shows and you're not closing, then that could be the offer. That could be the call. That could be a number of things. It could be your whole messaging. It could be the whole ICP. It could be all of these things. So this is probably where people struggle a lot. But if we're looking at just the offer and the sort of sales skill, this is probably the main things that are going to be your issue. Maybe your offer is mispriced or your sales skills are just ass. Okay, and that's going to be usually the case, is your sales skills are bad. So module 2 and 7. And then last thing is everything works, but you lose money. This is probably unrealistic. If all of these are working, you'll probably miss something out, but it could end of the case. If all of this is working and you're still losing money, then your pricing is wrong. Okay. And your leads are wrong. And like these are the wrong people, then your ICP is too broad, your qualifying questions are too soft, you need to add more friction, you need to improve your ad scripts, okay? But there's so much going on here. This is a high level overview. Now, again, you have to get into this habit of diagnostic. You always fix the broken step, okay? There's going to be one thing that is holding you back from increasing your ad spend and making more money, and you have to fix that. So every month you can go through all of these steps, figure out what your KPIs are and everything like that. And here is your done when. Here is your done when checklist. So let's move on to module 7. All right, module 7, sales. So again, this is going to be a large constraint. If you set everything else up correctly, this is going to be the biggest constraint. And for us, because when we do our programs, we do lots of done for you setups. So we set everything from module 1 to module 6 up for you. So most of the time that is built really well. And then the only reason you're struggling to scale past that is because your sales skills are not up to scratch. A lot of sales comes down to being able to follow the script and memorizing it. So that's what we're going to talk about here. So the goal is to have a close rate of 35% or more, and you want to be able to answer every objection that you might hear. So the shape of the call is we run around 30 to 45 minutes. You want to ask every single question that we talk about, because that's going to take them through these stages of buying, take them through the closer framework as well. And how is that going to look? So you start off with a bit of small talk, a few seconds just to make it more comfortable. Then you go into the current situation. So exactly what is happening with your child's grades right now. Pain diagnosis, what is the issue? Label the problem back to them. So exactly what is, so if the issue is, for example, they can't improve their grades because they've tried X, Y, Z, then label that back to them, okay? Make sure that they're aware of this problem. And then you talk about their target and their dream outcome. Why do you want to get this top grade? What is the top grade you want to get? Link it to the ROI that we talked about earlier, okay? And then present the offer. So this is where you pitch. You can do a slide deck, okay? And you can go through, we'll talk about this in a second. And then objection handling. This should be 50% of your call, in my opinion. 30 to 50% of your call should be objection handling. Many people, beginners, are just not going to do this enough. And that's why they're just going to lose all their sales, because they're not handling objections. Once you've handled all the objections, you take payment, or you downsell and then you take payment, okay? Again, most people lose the call because, first of all, they rush the price, so they haven't done the discovery correctly. And second of all, they don't objection handle enough, okay? So let's go through each stage. Obviously, to start off with, anything is good for small talk, okay? And then you can just frame them, right? We're going to do this and this on this call, okay? We're going to go through and understand exactly what your child is aiming for, what they need help with, etc. Stage 2 is going to be the current situation, okay? So you build up a picture of exactly where your child is at, and hopefully this builds a bit of pain as well, right? And obviously stage 3 is going to lead into this. So you don't want to skip this, right? And this is going to get them to tell you what they're worried about, what they tried to fix it. Have they tried revision? Have they tried YouTube videos? Have they tried schedules, etc.? All of these things. And if they've tried all of these things, you want to think about, well, why did that not work? Why are you on this call right now? Okay. And if they tell you themselves that they need help, they're much more likely to actually believe it. Okay. The whole point of sales is you have to get them to say it. You can't tell them this is a solution, this is a problem. They have to tell it to you. So that's why you always have to ask questions to get them to say that to you, okay? What happens if nothing changes between now and the exam date? So that's doing a bit of future pacing. How does a child feel about it, right? And how do you feel about it, right? Especially how do you feel about the fact that you might not be able to hit this target? You might have these dreams for your child to get into dentistry, into medicine, etc. How does that feel for you? Okay. Again, this part of the sales process is where you're going to be able to get all of those details to feed back into module 1 once you start taking sales calls. Okay. Stage 4 is labeling the problem. So this is what I feel like is the main issue based on what you're saying. Do you agree? Okay. And then stage 5 is the target and the why. So you're building up the dream outcome. Okay. What is the target? Why this specifically? What does that mean for you? Okay. And this is how you're able to do the ROI framing, because they're going to tell you this is going to lead to me getting into these universities, these jobs. They might, even if it's too far down, they might just tell you, I think education is really important, right? And it's going to be really important for later life. I want them to be able to sustain themselves, etc. Right? So you want to be able to link to that. okay? And yeah, walk them up that ladder, right? So they see the value. Stage 6 is presenting the offer. So again, we usually use a slide deck, okay? And the deck structure that we use is, first of all, for proof, you can do this at the start as well, but you want to have a few stories, right, where you talk about your student that went from X to Y, and it makes it a bit more personal. And then you want to have an infinite scroll as well. So an infinite scroll is going to be where you have tons of testimonials, and you can just flick through all of them, and it makes it look like you've got loads and loads of social proof, okay? And okay, if we're looking at the deck structure, you have their situation restated in their words. You have their target. You show them the gap between the two. And you can also show them exactly how the program closes that gap, right? And how it solves a specific problem. But then you can compare it to why other programs don't close that gap, right? Maybe your program is specifically, it has accountability, it has practice problems, and it has a professional teaching, okay? Maybe those are the 3 steps that close the gap to getting a better grade. And maybe the other programs usually miss accountability, right? Maybe they don't get you to do enough practice problems. Maybe they don't have high enough quality teaching, right? And then you do that comparison. You stop being a commodity, okay? Obviously, go through the guarantee and the price at the end, and you always want to show them the most expensive one first. So it's a price anchor. Now, objection handling, okay? This is after you've shown the price, you have to retie to value. Most of the time, you are going to get resistance. People are not going to want to buy immediately. They're going to say they want to think about it, okay? Now, 2 things. First of all, I have had clients in the past who expect resistance too much, okay? Some parents are just going to whip out their credit card and they're going to want to buy. And you have to be prepared for that. I've had people in the past who split their payments up into too many installments because they're just confused why the parent has got so much money to put into this, okay? Obviously, assume the sale, okay? Assume that these guys are going to pay you. So be ready to take a full payment of 3K or whatever your price is. But be ready also to retie the value, okay? They're going to tell you, I want to think about it, or maybe it's too expensive, and you're going to retie to the value. So this is similar to what I just talked about in stage 5. Before we talk about money for a second, there's a few things that we go into first. So before we do this, we have a bit more of a dense sales script where we will say, do you feel like this is actually going to get you the result? They'll say yes. Then you say, why do you feel like this is going to get you the result? They'll tell you why they like your program, okay? And then you say, well, if this does get your child the result and it leads them to these top universities and these top careers, is it going to be worth it to you then? Then they'll probably say yes. Now they've agreed with you on the value of the program, okay? And then you're going to have other objections to handle. So if it's money, they've just agreed to you that this is worth it. So now you have to think about, well, okay, if this is this actually affordable for you right now? If they say no, then you say, how much can you actually afford right now? If you don't mind being sort of honest with me, they'll probably tell you a price, and you can break it into installments for them based off of that price, okay? And installments should be customized. You shouldn't just say, we'll break it into 3. If you're selling a 2K package and they say they can only afford £500 right now, split it into 4 installments. The next objection you're probably going to get is the decision maker, okay? So now this one has to be prevented, okay? Before you hop on the call, you should ideally get them. There's 2 things you can do. You can get them to actually make sure they bring their husband or wife and the child to the call. So you can do that by messaging them before the call and making sure they reschedule if they can't do that. And secondly, you can switch them to a 2-call close. Okay, so that means you do a bit of objection handling, right? So you want to understand, well, what does your husband think? Are they supportive of this problem, right? And then if they are supportive and everything is good, you say, well, it sounds like you're fully on board. You can do 2 things from here as well. You can either get a deposit from them, or you can just book a follow-up call. Minimum, you want to book a follow-up call, right? You say, well, let's get a call booked in with your partner. They're going to have questions for me. They're going to want to know exactly how this program works as well, right? It's probably better coming from the source rather than you having to explain everything. So are you available in the next few days? Let's look at my calendar. I've got a slot at Friday. Can you hop on a call on Friday? We can have both of you on and we can make the decision then, okay? That's what you're going to do for decision maker problems, okay? For timing, people are going to say, I want to start after a certain amount of period. You're going to know that obviously starting earlier is going to be better, right? And also, if they're busy right now, they're probably going to be busy later on. Okay, so you want to get them to admit that they're going to be busy later on. And it's probably going to be better if they start now and they learn how to manage their time so they can actually do well during those busy periods as well. Okay, and the final thing that they're going to usually have an objection for is fear. So what if it doesn't work? Okay, and I mean, with this, you have to keep asking them, basically. So what it's going to come down to is sales is the whole reason you're doing objection handling is you want to sort of segue the conversation so that it lets you ask them to buy again. So that's what sales is. Every time they say, I want to think about it, you need to say something that allows you to ask them again. You can't just say, well, buy it now, right? You have to handle that, think about it. So fear is usually part of this, right? And that just means you need to have objection handles that allow you to sort of go around that. So one of them that we use is, for example, I understand you want to think about it, but what boxes need to be checked in your mind for you to want to go ahead with something like this, okay? They'll probably tell you, and then you say, well, XYZ, we actually do this, or whatever it is, and that should allow you to ask them again. So shall we get ahead and get started now, right? And that's what you're doing here. And here is the downsell ladder. So obviously you want to always show the anchor and then the core, right? So usually you'd want to compare these two. You show these two so that they see a comparison, right? Or you can just show the anchor and then you'll be able to tell within a few seconds whether they think it's way too expensive, way out of budget, and then you downsell, okay? Now, you don't go past this. You have to objection handle, right? And you have to take some time to actually figure out whether they can afford this. And if they can't, that's when you downsell, okay? That's when you go to a lower ticket and then a lower ticket and then a lower ticket. And you want to make sure that you go to something that they can afford. But make sure you don't just show them all the way down. You have to find something that works for them, ideally something that is expensive, but they can afford. And then stage 8 is going to be taking the payment. So obviously try and take the payment on the call, send the link while they're still talking and get them to sort of confirm it all. And you can say, well, I'll just make sure I'm here on the other end of the call and make sure it came through. And worst case, you book a follow-up call and they will be able to pay on there, okay? But you don't want to just let them email you and say that I'll pay later today, always have a follow-up call booked in. And on installments, obviously try and collect as much cash up front. So you can front load the installments. You can have a bigger installment to start with and smaller later on, okay? Or you can use Klarna, like I mentioned. And like we already mentioned, if they're paying you directly, you can give them discounts to pay off the rest of them once they're 2 to 3 weeks in. And that's it for sales, okay? Again, there's lots to go through here. Alex Amosi has got some really long videos on sales, which I would recommend you watch as well. But this is as much as we can cover in this free course, okay? So once you're done, go through this checklist and we'll move on to the next session. All right, good job on making it to the end. So now you've got this full system running where you're bringing in calls, you're bringing on parent inquiries, and now you're selling them. So the next thing is you have to actually onboard these guys and retain them and ideally get referrals from them and testimonials from them. So this is going to be a short module, but this isn't an afterthought. We still need to make sure that we are delivering really well, okay? You have to actually deliver on what you've actually sold, okay? And you have to make sure that your guarantee is safe so that you don't end up getting a bunch of refunds. And this is going to feed back into your ad creatives. Every testimonial, every screenshot of a result, all of this comes into your ad creative. And bad delivery is going to end up sort of hurting you in the long run, okay? So in the first 48 hours, you must send them a welcome email, payment receipt, onboarding form. Make sure everything looks very professional. Onboarding form depends on if you need information from them about their grades, reports, etc. Okay. Within 24 hours, you want to make sure that everything is set up. They maybe have a WhatsApp group or whatever it is, and their tutor gets assigned to them. If that's you for now, that's fine. But obviously later on, you're going to be assigning tutors. And then within 48 hours, you want to book in their first session, ideally, if possible. And the reason being is most people will refund or have second thoughts within the first sort of 24 hours, 48 hours, okay? So the quicker you get something going and they have a good experience, the less likely they are to get upset. And so what they actually going to remember about your program, they're going to remember the start of your program. So if the start of your program is really good and they have a really good experience, and the end of the program is really good and they have a really good experience, they get a good grade, even if in the middle, you have loads of tech issues, you have bad tutors, you have loads of tutor swapping, these things parents might get pissed off about. But if the start and the end is good, in their mind, psychologically, they're going to feel like this was a really good program because that's what you remember. Usually, you don't remember the big middle, okay? And speed is going to be disproportionately important here. Obviously, speed, you want to get there fast on the start. And same thing with the end. As soon as you get the results, you want to get to them quickly for a testimonial, okay? And here is a welcome email. Here is some templates that you can utilize, okay? And template for onboarding form if you want to use that. If you want to use a weekly check-in form for your guarantee, you can use something like this. Again, this is really useful because it keeps the student accountable. It shows you their progress, right? And it gives you data. And again, it's evidence that you can utilize to prove whether someone achieved your guarantee or not, okay? And what is the cadence? So again, just some sort of examples, obviously tutoring sessions around weekly, check-in forms if you're going to do that weekly, WhatsApp reports. So you want to do these often, right? Reason being is if you're going to have one tutoring session a week and you don't speak to the parent until the end of the month for a parent meeting, that's not going to be good. You want to be giving them updates. They want to keep them in the loop constantly, so they're not going to have anxiety about whether this is actually working. So always give them updates after the session, maybe midweek as well, whatever it is, okay? Every 4 weeks, you probably want to have a parent call, okay? And then ongoing, you want to allow them to ask questions to you whenever they need, okay? Again, here's a quick template you can run. And in terms of the 4-week review, you want to show them the data, sessions, attendance, etc. You want to show them what's improved, what's still a problem, and what you are doing to actually change that and like improve them. And obviously you can talk about the guarantee conditions as well if you want to, okay? And this is also a moment where you'll be able to get them on renewals, on upsells, or take testimonials, okay? If you've seen loads of progress, right, and this is exam date, let's get you upsold to the next program. If you pay off the rest of these installments now, you'll get a discount, or if you join the next program now, you'll get a discount. This is what you want to run, okay? Asking for the testimonial, again, you have to do this immediately as a good result comes out or a visible jump in scores, okay? They have to be on a high, and that's when they're actually going to commit to something like this, okay? And in terms of testimonials, video always beats text, okay? Named beats anonymous, and specific numbers beats adjectives, okay? So if they went from a 5 to an 8, right, and they say it on camera and they've got the parent and the student there, okay, this is all really useful rather than something being in text, okay? And the other thing is, again, grade reports, anything that you can add, because there's a trust recession right now. People don't believe you. If you have loads of sections of proof to prove that this is a real student getting a real result, that makes a big difference, okay? And obviously get permission from them to make sure there's no legal issues, that you can actually use this in advertising. And we're rounding off now. So this is your done when checklist, and that is the whole system, guys. So from offer to funnels to ads to calls to delivery, every part of it is here. And none of it is theory. This is exact system that I am running on my own tutoring business right now. And I'm also running with over 30 clients of ours, which are all getting crazy results, okay? So go ahead and build it. I'll see you guys in the next one.